Minister of State Joseph Harmon, along with Minister of Natural Resources Raphael Trotman and Minister of Public Infrastructure David Patterson and other officials from the Office of Climate Change recently returned from attending the Oslo Tropical Forest Forum in Norway. While there, Minister Harmon and the team engaged with Norwegian officials on the Norway Forest Agreement and were successful in achieving a major breakthrough. Minister Harmon sat down with the Department of Public Information to highlight these new developments.
The future of Guyana has never looked better. Our nation is on the cusp of a development program like never seen before. While Guyana is now emerging as an energy giant through the discovery of massive reserves of oil and natural gas, it is your government's intention that the huge benefits emerging from this will go where it matters most, to you, the people of this beloved country. There is a surge of confidence in the way Guyana is governed once again, and the level of investor interest is unprecedented. Guyana is poised to become the breadbasket of the region, and the pace at which this nation will grow through prudent fiscal management will be nothing short of impressive. But more than anything else will be the way every Guyanese, regardless of color, class, or creed, becomes a part of this historic period of national transformation, sharing in the wealth and well-being of it all as one Guyana.
Now let's get right into the meat of the matter. You recently returned from Norway. There was a discussion with the Norwegian delegation. Could you give us an update about that meeting and some of the outcomes?
Indeed, I'm very happy to provide this update for the Guyanese public and in fact for the world at large, because I know they're listening to you. Guyanese, in particular in the diaspora, listen very carefully to what is happening here. I was instructed by His Excellency the President to respond to an invitation which was sent to Guyana by the Minister of Climate and Environment of Norway, Mr. Ola Elvestuen, inviting us to a meeting of the Forest Conference in Oslo and to discuss the issues related to our agreement between the Kingdom of Norway and Guyana. We deliberated on the matter, and His Excellency suggested that we take a very strong delegation to Oslo to emphasize the importance which Guyana places on this agreement and with the relationship between our two countries. We believe, as the President said, is that the relationship between our two states far exceeds the terms and conditions of this written agreement. And so it was that background which we took to Norway during the period 26th, 27th, and 28th of June 2018. All of these things were done within a certain framework. That framework was established by the agreement which was signed between Guyana, signed by the President at that time, Bar Jagbio, and the Minister of Climate and Environment in Norway, Mr. Solheim, Eric Solheim. The fact of the matter is that by the time we arrived in Oslo, that there were certain conditions which had actually played out. First of all, when we came into office, we recognized that the agreement between Guyana and Norway was actually coming to an end at the end of December, I believe, 2015. And upon that, I did in fact write the Minister of the Environment in Norway, indicating our intention to extend the agreement beyond the life, that present life. I got a response indicating that Norway was very pleased to do so, and that they had set out certain conditions which we should satisfy before we actually had a meeting on moving this process forward. Some of those conditions were that we have a clear position on the matter of Amila Falls, and that we were to provide to them our energy mix plan taking us to 2025, showing how we will use or utilize sustainable sources of energy. Those things were done In fact, at a conference in Marrakesh in Morocco, Minister Jordan, the Minister of Finance, accompanied His Excellency the President, and they met with the Norwegians there. Out of that meeting came a request that there should be a study done on the options with respect to Myla. That study was undertaken by a company called Norconsult. Norconsult did its report, and there were several things in the report which I think was highly commented upon in the public domain, so I need not go over that again. But certainly some felt that that was one of the sticking points in our relationship. And added to that was the fact that since 2015, we had found that oil was discovered in commercial quantities here in Guyana, and so was natural gas. And we felt that since natural gas was a national resource, that it was clean, it was cheap, that we felt it was necessary at this point in time in our development that we utilize some part of it as part of our energy mix. The sense we got was that the Norwegians were not particularly comfortable with that arrangement, and so we started to look at some other options. Solar presented a very compelling case, and so we had engaged some international experts on solar development. They came to Guyana, did a study, and they prepared a very excellent report, in my view, on the use of solar. This report was prepared by a company called Neoterra. Now, Neoterra is an organization that was formed by the former chairman of Conservation International. After he left Conservation International, he formed this company to look at financing for indigenous communities and communities that are affected by, that are impacted by forest coverage. Mr. Peter Seligman. So Neoterra came, Neoterra did some excellent work for us, and in fact we invited Neoterra to be part of our delegation when we went to Norway. So to Norway we went, myself as the leader of the delegation, Minister Trotman as the minister with responsibility for the forest and the Guyana Forestry Commission, Minister Patterson, the Minister of Public Infrastructure with responsibility for energy, Mr. Marlon Bristol, who is the project manager at the Office of Climate Change, also as the technical person in our team. The Norwegians, when we got there, were very, very receptive. The minister was extremely receptive to us. In fact, before our formal meeting, I had at least 2 other engagements with the minister. One of them was at a dinner which he hosted in the City Hall of Oslo. Now, this is the hall where the Nobel Peace Prize is awarded. So I felt particularly honored to have been in that particular spot where it's done. And it was hosted also by the mayor of the city of Oslo. So we were given pride of place in this dinner. We had over 100 and something representatives from various countries there. So Minister Patterson, Minister Trotman, and myself, we sat at the head table. And so we felt Guyana was being honored in a major way. The next day, of course, we had lunch with the minister again, and we further explained our situation. The sense I got from these meetings was that the Norwegians were willing and they wanted to have a better relationship with Guyana. They wanted a relationship, in my view, that went beyond the signed agreement which we have. And so when we actually went to the meeting, that was the atmosphere that prevailed. Before the actual meeting itself, we met with Mr. Eric Solheim, who is now the Executive Director of the United Nations Environment. Mr. Solheim had just flown from Da Nang in Vietnam, where our president went there and made an excellent presentation. And he flew directly from Vietnam to to come and meet with us in Oslo. So straight from the airport he came, and we had an excellent meeting with him and one of the project officers from the United Nations Environment, a Dr. Hebe. So we had this meeting, and Mr. Solheim undertook, we asked him whether in fact he would use his experience and so on to help promoting our case with the Norwegians, which he undertook to do, and he was very happy to do so. He did say in fact that he was very pleased with the role which our president was playing internationally on the environment, and this was one of the factors, I believe, that helped us in the negotiations. One was that our president had been, in a really, really big way, a champion of the environment. And I believe at some point in time, the world will recognize that. He has made statements, he has acted on those statements, and so the Norwegians have accepted that, they recognize that, and they actually said so. The leadership role which our president is playing on environmental issues internationally. Secondly, they acknowledge that our management of the forest was something that is worth commending. In fact, we have the lowest deforestation rate in the world. We have a deforestation rate of 0.05, which was a vast improvement from what we had in 2013 of 0.68. And so the world needed to know about that. And we did, in fact, make that case at the earlier conference which was held on forest coverage. I sat there on a panel with several international experts, and along with a representative from the Amerindian People's Association here, Ms. Laura George. And we presented Guyana's case. And I want to say that I felt very, very happy that all of the persons who actually went there, irrespective of where they came from, recognized that Guyana was important. It was Guyana's case that we were putting out there. And so we found that we were what the lawyers call addendum on most of the issues in relation to the environment. So that after that, we had our meeting and we presented our case. Because Germany had invested heavily in solar, and that the Chinese had actually used that technology to make it even bigger, that solar energy was, the cost for solar energy was declining around the world. It is becoming more reliable because of the ability to store power by virtue of these batteries which they were now designing. And so when we looked at it, I think the Norwegians were very happy with that development. So the presentations were made, and I'm happy to report that the Norwegians were quite pleased with our presentation. They indicated very clearly that the sums of money which were held as a result of the agreement, that there was $40 million which we had earned and which had not been transferred to the trustee account, and that they indicated that they were prepared to do that immediately. There was $80 million which were placed in an IDB account, and that seemed to have been tied to Amila Falls. That is no longer the case, this sort of linking, but that it might very well be used. In fact, they suggested that maybe we could use that for the solar development which was going to take place. And more importantly was the fact that they recognized that at this stage of our development, that Guyana needed to utilize every source of energy to move our people out of the economic state in which we are. And so a major undertaking was that they said to us that they were not objecting to us utilizing some levels of gas, natural gas, as part of our energy mix. But that should not be our central direction or the central focus. And I believe that was a major a major change. So that the solar presentation, the releasing of the funds, the fact that we could utilize some levels of natural gas, which we explained to them was transitional. and that we are not going to use it as a primary source, but we will use that in transition to our sustainable energy program, which will see us utilizing solar, hydro, biomass, and wind. So all of these we are looking at as a total package that will move Guyana into this level of sustainable energy. So we're very happy with the result. I believe that the sixth payment, which is now due under the agreement at about $10.5 million, that is also going to be freed up. We agreed that this is going to be a sort of a trilateral arrangement where the representatives from Norway, representatives from Guyana, and the agencies, such as the IDB, that we will meet urgently to expedite these arrangements. And that we believe is important, that it is something that has to be done now. We want to ensure that the benefit of this agreement goes to the people of Guyana, and it impacts on their lives and on their livelihood in a positive way.
The future of Guyana has never looked better. Our nation is on the cusp of a development program like never seen before. While Guyana is now emerging as an energy giant through the discovery of massive reserves of oil and natural gas, it is your government's intention that the huge benefits emerging from this will go where it matters most, to you, the people of this beloved country. There is a surge of confidence in the way Guyana is governed once again, and the level of investor interest is unprecedented. Guyana is poised to become the breadbasket of the region, and the pace at which this nation will grow through prudent fiscal management will be nothing short of impressive. But more than anything else will be the way every Guyanese, regardless of color, class, or creed, becomes a part of this historic period of national transformation, sharing in the wealth and well-being of it all as one Guyana.
So, Minister, could you elaborate a little bit more on the solar approach that government will be taking?
Minister Patterson, who was there, actually had some documents from the Guyana Power and Light. Were there because they had actually been engaged with the experts over a period of time here in Guyana. And so they've actually prepared some documentation. Now, the approach is this. In the first year, that is, we open from starting now to the end of the first year, that they will have what they call a 15% displacement. Now, that displacement is the displacement of fossil fuel, diesel. So in effect, if we are utilizing, let us say, 100 barrels of diesel, it'll be 15 less in the first year, because that is what the solar approach will take in. And within 2 to 3 years, 50% of all of our energy needs with respect to diesel will be taken up by solar. So that we believe that within that space of time, between 1 to 3 years, that we will have been able to move to at least 50% of our energy needs to be provided by solar. This, of course, is to be complemented, of course, by the hydroelectricity projects that we'll have. There are several of them. In fact, in today's paper, you'll have seen the regional chairman of Region 9 speak about Mokomoka and other falls there. Minister Patterson, 3 weeks ago at the press conference, the post-cabinet press briefing, indicated the series of hydro power facilities that will be utilized across the country. So we will be proceeding with those. We'll be proceeding with wind, and we'll be proceeding with biomass as well. Of course, this will be, as I said, the transitional arrangement for natural gas will also kick in over this period. So what we hope is that by a combination of all of these, to provide stable, reliable electricity for domestic use, for industrial use, and for future development of this country. We understand clearly that once your electricity supply becomes stable, that more people will come onto the grid that are not on the grid right now, and that there is going to be more expansion. People will be free and happy to expand. So there's definitely going to be an increased demand for electricity, for power. And these are the things that we are catering for going forward.
And before we close off, Minister, could you explain what access to these funds, this over $100 million will do for Guyana, the ordinary citizen?
Oh, fantastic things. For example, so that this solar is going to be one major thing. As you know, some funds have already been spent on the arrangements. We have the Konya Canal project. We have the ICT project that is going on in the hinterland communities. We are dealing with also some opt-in mechanisms, payment for the opt-in mechanism for our indigenous communities to opt into this project with respect to the preservation and conservation of our forests. We expect some capacity building at several levels, not only at the technical level for the officers and so on who promote this, but at the lower level, the individual level, we expect some funds to be there for capacity building. And so at the level of the ordinary man and woman in Guyana, we expect that there's going to be some direct impact. And this is one of the things, as I said, when we came into office, we criticized was that we did not see the trickling down of the effects of the agreement onto the lives of the ordinary people. And so this is really what is going to happen. We're going to make sure that that is done, and that the money is not just spent on just capacity building at the high level, but it goes right down to the people, to the building sustainable livelihoods, getting the education of our people with respect to the environment and climate change, getting them to understand what it means and what changes they need to make in their lifestyles.
Thank you very much, Minister. And that's a wrap for this program. This was a special program by the Department of Public Information. I was joined by the Honorable Minister of State, Joseph Harmon, and we discussed the Norway Agreement. Thank you.